Palestinians in Jabba, south of Jenin, in the occupied West Bank. They were travelling in a car that witnesses say was targeted by snipers on rooftops. Israel says the Palestinians were fighters carrying weapons and explosives. Earlier, I spoke to Nida Ibrahim, who gave us an update from the occupied West Bank.
According to local witnesses, they say that the Israeli forces have shot heavily at a car in Jenin, that at least 2 people were in. Now, according to the Israeli army, they say that they were trying to arrest the men when they've engaged in an exchange of fire with the Israeli forces. Now, according to witnesses there, this did not happen. That's why people there are calling it an assassination of these 3 men. They were imprisoned by the Israeli forces and they were released just recently. And we've been hearing from Palestinians in Jenin that they will continue the fight. We were there yesterday where Palestinians have buried 6 Palestinians after they were killed in an Israeli raid. Palestinians say that Israel only understands the language of force, that they will keep on the fight and they will not be deterred by these Israeli actions. Also in Jenin, a 14-year-old boy has succumbed to his wounds after he was wounded a few days ago by Israeli forces. He is a 14-year-old. This raises the death toll just since the beginning of this year to 78 Palestinians.
Nida, over the last couple of weeks or so, there have been efforts to try to find some sort of way of de-escalating this situation. We saw meetings that were happening in Aqaba in Jordan, for example. Is there any sign at all that those efforts are actually having any effect?
It's clear that Israel is not stopping its raid to the occupied West Bank. Just 2 days after those understandings were reached to meet in Aqaba, Israel raided Nablus and killed 10 Palestinians, 11 actually, Palestinians in one raid. So if you look at the situation on the ground, Palestinians would tell you that the cause for their resistance is the Israeli occupation. This is why they will continue the fight. But when it comes to Israel, it says that it will not allow those armed men that have been increasing all across the occupied West Bank to continue. We see this phenomena that has started in Jenin but has moved also to Nablus, and in other locations. We've seen Jericho had armed men being involved in the fight. So for Israel, this is a situation that they want to contain. They want to prevent Palestinians from fighting. But as far as Palestinians are concerned, they say that the leadership can agree on whatever it wants to agree on with Israel, but the people want an end to the occupation, and they see the armed struggle as one way of doing that.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is visiting Israel as protests continue against the hard-right government's planned judicial overhaul. Imran Khan is joining us live now from West Jerusalem. This is part of a wider regional tour that Lloyd Austin's been doing. This visit to Israel is during increased tension.
Well, not just increased tension, he's actually arriving in a state that is in a political crisis over the judicial reform bill that's being discussed. There's thousands of people out on the streets across Israel. 95 different locations people are protesting. They were already going to be at the airport where the meeting is going to take place. Now, normally, these meetings take place in the Defence Ministry. Lloyd Austin and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu aren't actually going to go to the Defence Ministry. Tel Aviv, there's simply too many protesters out in the streets. Lloyd Austin was supposed to arrive on Wednesday night. Instead, the Israelis asked him to arrive Thursday morning to the airport. Benjamin Netanyahu is actually being helicoptered to the airport for that meeting to take place. It's extraordinary, the circumstances that this meeting is taking place under. Now, these protesters, they are out on the streets and they will try and get their voice heard. But what's likely to be the scenario actually at the meeting? What's going to be discussed? Well, clearly, Iran is going to be of concern to both parties. There's increasingly hostile language that the Prime Minister has been using about Iran for a number of years now. That's concerning some in the US who are wondering if that might lead to some sort of escalation. Also, maybe perhaps a distraction method against the protesters, gives the news media something else to talk about. So it's likely that that's being discussed. But remember, Israel gets about $3.5 billion a year in military aid alone. So having these meetings between the Secretary of Defense and the Israeli Secretary of Defense and the Prime Minister do take place on a fairly regular basis. But this is under very extraordinary circumstances, given the type of language and the makeup of Benjamin Netanyahu's own cabinet, which has caused alarm in US circles, particularly within the Biden administration.
It's Imran Khan talking to us from West Jerusalem. Imran, thank you.